Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film Sausage Party. Sausage Party is ridiculous, stupid, crude, satirical, and smart, all wrapped up into one. In a lot of ways, it's a typical R-rated animated comedy, but in a lot of ways it tries to tackle a lot more than those usually do, which is very appropriate since this is probably the biggest release an R-rated animated film has gotten, as far as I can tell, for a very long time. I was kind of surprised by Sausage Party in some regard, and then other parts I really wasn't. It kind of takes on our view of consumer goods, and specifically food, obviously, because it's about food and in a grocery store, and how if food were to be sentient, just like the toys in Toy Story, for example, they would first probably see us as gods, but also be entirely disgusted and horrified at what we actually do to food, which is eat it, but also how we eat it is pretty disgusting as well. It's kind of a smarter idea, because if you really think about how we treat not just food, but consumer goods in general, they probably wouldn't like us as much as they make it out to be in Toy Story. Now, I'm not saying the Toy Story movies are bad. Everybody loves the Toy Story movies, but it's a smarter way to look at it. Not only is it a parody of the tried and true John Lasseter formula of blanky blank has feelings, it also has a lot of things to say as well. And I was honestly kind of surprised by Sausage Party, maybe because it has such a dumb title and you don't really expect that much from it, and that's probably one of the greatest gifts it has for it. And that's one of the smartest things animation has, because as soon as you're disregarding it, it can kind of sneak up on you, and it can say a lot more than most serious films that try to tackle a lot of the issues that Sausage Party is really going to do, and be able to say it to a wider audience than most of those films that would tackle such issues like that. And the audience I saw it with actually loved it. Most of the time I see an R-rated animated film, it's me and a couple other jerkwads in the theater. It's like 5 people in a huge theater and no one's there. But this was like a full packed theater. Everyone was laughing hysterically throughout, and not just like weird animation fans. I mean, maybe they were, I don't know. Kind of like normal mainstream people who seem to absolutely love it. Sausage Party is definitely a crowd-pleasing, big Hollywood comedy in the tradition that you're used to from Seth Rogen. It might not be his greatest movie, but it's not his weakest at all either. In fact, it's probably up there with his better works, and kind of shows what he can do, and almost shows an improvement in his writing. I think this definitely shows a willingness to have fun with animation and say something with animation, but also showing a story that only animation can tell, and really using it for something and making a very impactful and also funny comedy. It's also a little too stereotypical, but is funny enough and outrageous enough and unique of an experience, but it's definitely a memorable and a worthwhile experience to go down the aisle of. A supermarket called Shopwell's, where everyone in the grocery store dreams of one day being chosen by a customer and taken home to the Beyond, as it's called. I think it's called the Beyond. I forget. Well, anyway, beyond the store's walls. And Frank, who is a hot dog voiced by Seth Rogen, and the girl he really likes, Brenda, who is a hot dog bun, very much want to be chosen together because he really wants to be in the hot dog bun, which they keep insinuating is very much sex to this food stuff, I guess. And so they have a song at the beginning of the day, and they very much love the idea that they're going to be chosen and taken to the Beyond, until Honey Mustard gets returned to the store and they start to learn the truth about what happens in the Beyond. And Frank and Brenda are separated from the food after they are chosen, and goes through the grocery store to figure out what exactly is going on, what exactly is the truth, and whether they can be together within the supermarket themselves, and what to do about these gods, who would choose them, and what exactly is happening in the Beyond, and how horrifying it can possibly be. I was kind of surprised how good the script of this is, and although something like The Interview, which even though it made a big hoopla, as satire it was kind of a total failure, and it doesn't really work very well. And usually the thing with Seth Rogen movies, and Apatow in general, and that whole style, but very much Seth Rogen, is if it's a very basic plot. The First Neighbors is a great example, or This Is the End, where it's like a bunch of celebrities trapped in a house at the end of the world, and they can just build gags and gags off of that. And same with Neighbors, it's just like these two neighbors hate each other. Frat boy, family man. That's the whole premise. And Sausage Party works in that very basic way. It's kind of going into a basic premise and really exploring it. He's also trying to do a lot more that he usually tries to do in comedies that are a lot more plot heavy. And it's kind of interesting because it really succeeds. And most of the time, I really don't like Seth Rogen films with this much plot, but I actually quite liked how they wrote this. Now, most of it is exploring a certain concept and getting really into it. And I feel like it kind of works that way, almost like how someone can like really delve into a joke and the philosophy behind it and how you would deal with a certain argument or a certain topic. And I think Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg are very good at that. Now, this is also written by Kyle Hunter and Ariel Schiffer, and the story was also by Jonah Hill and Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. I just really love when they do that. It is kind of like more simpler comedy, but I think they accomplish quite a lot. In fact, probably more than they do in This Is the End or Neighbors. And although this isn't as good as probably what I still feel is the best written Seth Rogen Evan Goldberg movie, which would be Superbad, I still was really surprised how this could take on certainly like satire, certainly the idea of God and blasphemy, and whether people, you know, believe in these things because it's nicer rather than know the truth. And it is actually fairly blasphemous, I guess, to most people, but I think a lot of people won't be as offended. I mean, I don't think Sony will get hacked again, he says now, because I don't think anyone will notice it as much. What this is saying about conformity, what this is saying about society, what this is saying about what we understand and what we like to accept rather than what's actually going on is quite striking and quite shocking and quite surprising. And it also kind of brings to mind that our consumer goods, I think we put them on this idea that they would love us and they wouldn't do nothing to serve us, and how that's kind of a really disgusting, fucked up idea. Not everything is sentient, or to my understanding of things are. I don't mean to offend you, and I'm totally on your side when the revolution comes. Like, people kind of suck. But I just think that that idea kind of gets into that you would kind of think like, well, if these are sentient and they are people, what would they act like? What would their arguments be like? What would their problems be like? What would the different kind of foods problems be like? This film does use a lot of kind of racial stereotypes to have various food items. There's a taco voiced by Selma Hayek. There's a very Jewish bagel. They try to do this kind of Israel-Palestine thing with a bagel and a lavash, which doesn't really work as well, to be honest. I think it kind of simplifies an argument that is fairly complicated, but I think you could theoretically and very definitely be offended. I'm sure some people will be offended by a lot of the things this film is doing, which it very much is flying in the face and being an R-rated animated film and doing all those things. But I think the thing with these stereotypes, they're using them fairly well, and what they're saying overall is a better message than the stereotypes they're using. It's not, I think certainly people who are certainly woke as fuck won't particularly love this movie and probably have a hard time with it maybe, but it is so funny, and what it's saying overall I think is worth it, so you should probably just relax. It did kind of take me back because I wasn't used to that in a modern movie, and it feels like it's kind of out of place, but it does manage to say a lot about how, like, you know, these various groups hate each other and can say things and do things that I think a lot of films wouldn't really have the balls to say, but since they're saying it about food rather than people, they can say them, which I thought actually kind of worked for the movie as a whole. But it is a little shocking to see that, especially like Selma Hayek as a taco in particular, or Craig Robinson as a box of grits and all, things like that. You're like, whoa, hold on there, what the fuck? And you kind of have to get used to it. I think it's something that's worthwhile for the film and what it's really trying to say, but also this film is very much doing the R-rated animated comedy type of thing where it just says fuck so much. It says fuck so fucking much. This motherfucker was frankly fucking shocked at how many fucking fucks they can fucking say. It was fucking ridiculous how many fucking times they said fuck. It was like they looked at the script and said, we need more fucking fucks in this fucking shit, and if we don't get more fucking fucks in this fucking movie, it's not gonna look fucking adult. And it kind of is a little fucking ridiculous, because when you're watching an R-rated animated film, when they do that, like heavy metal, which I like heavy metal, it's really pushing the idea of like a 15-year-old watching it and they don't want their mom to come in because they're watching it late and she'll like freak out at watching like this dirty cartoon or something. I do think they kind of over fucking did it with the fucking fucks. It's just like, what the fuck? Calm the fuck down. And it has like no meaning after a while. And I know Seth Rogen puts a lot of fucking fucks in his fucking movies for whatever the fucking reason. It just got really fucking annoying after a while, and people just overdo it in this movie in particular. And it's kind of a bad trope of more R-rated animated films to do that, to really push the sex angle, to really push the fucks and not give a fuck, I guess, is the whole idea. I get it, but it's been done so many times I'm frankly just sick of it. I never complain about language, but with the way they were doing it, it wasn't really really fucking creative. It was just like fucking fuck, and you're like, cool, I guess, whatever. This did actually get some interesting people directing it. Conrad Vernon, who had done Monsters vs. Aliens and Madagascar 3 and was a co-director on Shrek 2, directed this as he wanted to work on something that wasn't aimed for kids, which I think you can definitely tell they have more of a pro animation director, as well as Greg Turn. They had music by Alan Menken, which is kind of surprising. They had a crazy cast. You know, you have Seth Rogen and Kristen Wiig, who are kind of the main two, do a great job. Bill Hader is amazing in animation. Jonah Hill has a small part. Michael Cera is fairly good. Danny McBride is one part. Nick Kroll, he plays a douche, which is very obvious, but he's very good at it. Salma Hayek as the taco is actually, like, no one's really that bad in it. I like this movie. I don't think I was as in love with it. I think I like what it could do with its premise and how surprising all of that was. Like, I didn't expect to laugh as much. I didn't expect to be as surprised. I didn't expect what this film was really saying. It does it in a sneaky way, but it doesn't. I like the reveal of understanding that people are actually eating food and it's horrible, and they're like basically slaughtering all this food, and like kind of all the jokes are at it, and especially the end jokes, which go way too far, but it's kind of like, I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. It's so ridiculous. You're just like, holy shit, this just happened. There's a lot of that in it, but I think overall what it's saying, it kind of really works for it, and it ends up being a real surprising movie. And I think this is the kind of film that most people, and it's kind of like a welcome surprise, I think, and it's good for animation and R-rated animated films in general to have a surprise of an animated film, because people will have more pleasant memories from it. And I hope maybe more R-rated animated films can get made. It took them actually a really long time to get this made, so I don't know if I'm really that hopeful, but if this does well, hopefully another one will get greenlit. That would be pretty cool. I think this is actually an excellent example of the medium, and probably one of the better animated films of this summer. Recently with this and Little Prince, I've actually been very surprised at how like interesting animation could be this summer. We have more kind of like safer animated films like Finding Dory and The Secret Life of Pets and Angry Birds. When we had films early in the year like Zootopia, I think we were all talking about how all the amazing things animation can do and talk about a lot of complex issues, and I think Sausage Party is really the first one to do that since then, and it's kind of cool. It kind of shows you how interesting and liberal the medium can really be, and it reminds you how awesome the medium can be. And I think Sausage Party hopefully paves the way for a lot more adult animated films, and it's certainly a film that's surprising. I think a surprising film can offer bigger and more fun results, and it's definitely a film that you're not going to forget, and a really great twist on the whole idea of consumer goods with feelings and food with feelings, and how horrific it is, while also saying a lot about God and systems and society and food, sex, and all this weird shit all together in just kind of this movie that you're like, wow, that happened and I kind of liked it and I'm not sure what. And it just exists in this weird, like, you're like, wow, they took this premise as far as it could go and said as much as they possibly could with it, and it all kind of worked. And it kind of surprised me in that way. It surprised me how good it was. And I think this year is probably the year we're going to be talking about all the amazing topics and subject matter that animation can really do. I think in a lot of ways, maybe Finding Dory and Secret Life of Pets was left out of that conversation, where Zootopia and Sausage Party have shown that animation can push itself to new levels and different levels of creativity and subject matter that I think people weren't really thinking it could, especially in the very lucrative animated features. And it's kind of surprising. I'm surprised I'm walking away from this year again thinking about how amazing the world of animation is, and Sausage Party kind of opens that up even more, because not only are we getting a wide release of an R-rated animated comedy, but it's also an R-rated animated comedy that's really trying to say something and say a lot of deeper things than I think most people want to think about when they're thinking about how this hot dog is going to go in this bun who kind of looks like a blow-up doll, and how kind of fucking weird that is, while they're also thinking about whether they should even trust their God, and how it's all probably not real, and we're all just being comforted because that's better to think that we're all just gonna kind of die and wither away and be forgotten. But it's much better to have that go down with a fart and a dick joke and a lot of fucks, rather than think about your own demise. So I guess we can thank Seth Rogen for that, while we look at a poster of him as a sausage with his hot dog bun blow-up doll face girlfriend. So if you've seen Sausage Party and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.